Hey everybody, Brent Axe, Matthew Fairburn here, Syracuse.com, NYUp.com, and we are talking about the 2018 NFL Draft. And Matt, the Buffalo Bills are chock full of draft picks, which is going to make them one of the more fascinating teams in this draft. So the Bills already moved up and got the 12th overall pick. They hold the 22nd overall pick in the first round. They have 2 picks in the first 3 rounds. So that makes the Bills a team that is going to be looking to trade up. Will they find a dance partner is the question. Let's start with the first scenario, Matt. There's the New York Giants sitting there with the 2nd overall pick. How willing will Brandon Beane's former partner, Dave Gettleman, now the GM of the Giants, be willing to make that trade with Brandon Beane?
Yeah, that's a fascinating scenario because Brandon Beane used to work under Dave Gettleman in Carolina, and you would think that makes some sense. If the Giants aren't trying to take a quarterback with the number 2 pick, they should be open to taking offers. The problem the Bills are going to have is you're asking the Giants to move from 2 all the way down to 12. That's giving up a lot, of space and a chance to draft an impact player at number 2. So, in order to do that, the Bills are probably giving up 12, giving up 22, maybe 53 and 56 in the second round, and the Giants might even ask for a future first-round pick, depending on who else is calling and offering deals. For the Bills to get them to move down 10 spots, they might have to give up a lot, and that scenario is where they have to give up the most to get up to number 2.
So if it's not the New York Giants, here you have the Cleveland Browns sitting there with the 1st overall pick and the 4th overall pick. So Cleveland takes a quarterback at 1, let's see, and the phones are open for pick number 4. What's it going to cost the Bills to move up to that spot with Cleveland?
That pick might come a little bit cheaper, and hey, maybe the Bills even call about the number 1 pick, because you never know until you ask. That price would be obviously astronomical, but the number 4 pick should be a little bit more affordable. Maybe you don't have to include the future first round pick, or maybe you get out of including the second round picks and you just include 12, 22, and a future first. Either way, the Jets set the price when they gave up what they gave up, 3 second round picks to move up just a few spots and move up to number 3. That kind of skewed the value a little bit. So if the Bills want to get to number 4, it's not going to come cheap.
So you got Cleveland, you've got the New York Giants. Another team the Bills could try and target is the Denver Broncos with the 5th overall pick. John Elway has certainly shown willingness in the past to trade. And Indianapolis at 6, Matt, seems like a team that they're going to accept a lot of phone calls for. You mentioned the Jets are already swapped picks with them to get the 3. If the Bills try to move into 5 or the 6, are we talking the same at what they give Cleveland, or does it get cheaper the further down the list we go?
It definitely gets cheaper the farther down you go. I think at number 5 or 6, you could be talking about 12, 22, and 53. You could swallow that, even if you have to throw in a 4th round pick and maybe a 4th round pick or 5th round pick comes back your way in the deal. That, I think, is a realistic scenario. Because, again, you're asking the Broncos to go from 5 to 12. A little bit different than 2 to 12, where there's some real elite talent on the board. The question is going to be, do the Broncos want a quarterback themselves? If the right one falls, maybe they just take the quarterback. But if they're sitting there at 5 and the guy they liked is gone, they should be open for business. They already signed Case Keenum, so they can get by for another year without drafting a quarterback. So 5 and 6 make a lot of sense if the Bills are trying to jump into the top part of the draft.
In any order, the top 3 teams in this draft, the Cleveland Browns at 1, the New York Giants at 2, and the New York Jets at 3, all take quarterbacks. Now the Bills are going to start to get a niche trigger finger here. So any team from 4 to 10 is in play here. It all depends on how the board falls. But if 3 quarterbacks go at the top, what do you think the Bills do to react?
Well, that's where things get interesting, because you're sitting there at number 12 getting pretty nervous if 3 quarterbacks are off the board. But you don't want to get desperate either, right? You don't want to just move up and give up all these assets for a guy you don't feel very strongly about, for the 4th quarterback on your board. It would depend which quarterbacks come off the board, where they go, and who's left to be willing to trade. But you also have to think about this. The Miami Dolphins are sitting at 11. They could need a quarterback. The Arizona Cardinals are sitting at 15. They could use a quarterback. The Ravens could be in the market. I'll even throw out the Saints and the New England Patriots as teams that could be looking for quarterbacks. So you're not just negotiating against those teams picking 6 to 10. You could be negotiating against the Dolphins, the Cardinals, or any other team that's looking to move up and draft a quarterback. So that's where this gets a little bit tricky. The Bills do have more to offer than any other team. So that's where they have the advantage in that scenario. But maybe Brandon Beane has his board set at 3 quarterbacks, who he'd be willing to trade up for. If those guys are gone and he really stays true to his board, I guess he would sit there and wait until 12, but that's a really risky deal in a draft like this.
Ultimately, I do think we are going to see the Buffalo Bills trade on draft day. Whether it's one of the scenarios we went over or not, we're just going to have to wait and see till April the 26th. For Matthew Fairburn, I'm Brent Axe for Syracuse.com and NYUp.com.